Good?
Take a sniff. We'll have more room or
Alright, let's get started!
Main camera, recording.
Can you do that?
Vampires. They're right to kill! We're good to start! Oh, excellent!
Am I in the shot?
Hi everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Knights of the Round Table 3rd season. Today we are discussing the 1973 film, The Exorcist. It's a classic. It's hailed as one of the formulative horror movies. Stephen King praises it as a huge influence. And so we're going to discuss it. We'll start with impressions of the film, and I'm going to start with you, Eric.
I believe my last comment when I actually wrote comments on this was meh. The movie had a lot of potential, but sort of tried to do too many things at once and was not in the least scary.
Rob.
I like The Exorcist as an influence. A lot of potential there. Some people did find it very scary. I personally didn't, but I can see where it had the elements, especially in its time. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're largely going to hear in this episode, at least coming from me anyway, is for its time, it was now.
Yeah.
Okay. I genuinely love this film, but I didn't find it scary. There was one moment where there was a jump scare that scared me, but I found the film itself really fascinating, which is part of my love for this film. I do terribly with horror movies. They scare me. I got nightmares watching Jurassic Park. So scary.
Yes.
I don't do well with scary movies, so I will agree that this movie was not nearly as terrifying as I thought it was going to be when I sat down to watch it. But it was still, for me, a really good movie. It was really fascinating, and I really enjoyed watching it.
I watched it in the past. I watched it about 2 months ago when, we first were talking about filming it, and I watched it again last night, and I nearly didn't make it through the intro scene, which was, count them, 12 minutes long, and as far as I can tell, its sole purpose was just to introduce a character that would come into play in the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. This was the dig in Iran?
Yes.
Yeah. See, I'm an archaeology nut, so I found that really interesting. Ooh, archaeology! I
just didn't understand where it was placed in the overall film. I was expecting them to, do some sort of foundation for, like where some of the supernatural bits would come from.
Well, that is a foundation for the supernatural. The name of the spirit is actually, the spirit that possesses the girl Reagan is actually an Assyrian/Babylonian demon or evil spirit of the wind, I think, responsible for locusts in the. No, I read up on it. Pazuzu, responsible for bringing the locusts in the rainy season and for bringing famine in the dry season.
Point was, I totally missed everything she just said in those first 12 minutes. But I did not see it at all.
The first 12 minutes are not archaeology, really. They're just some guy running around and people freaking out in the desert and a priest looking haggard.
And subtitles.
Okay, and subtitles. Yeah, I don't mind the subtitles. Like every other section of this movie, it was a movie in of itself that didn't go far enough. I would have loved to have seen that expanded. You see the dig get destroyed. You see the priest have to fight this thing. Like, they give us
or
his backstory.
A flashback about having to exorcise this
They give us this backstory of the demon and of the priest, and it's sort of like, oh yeah, no worries. This happened. And you're like, what? But that's more interesting than what you're doing.
The Mummy handled it better.
Yes. Yes.
I don't remember.
Shockingly,
we should add that to the list, actually. The Mummy.
The Brendan Fraser one.
Yeah.
Concise information given. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it felt like none of that first part was anything but setting the mood for a movie that didn't happen.
Yep.
I agree. It did feel out of place.
Which I will complain about for the rest of the movie. Each chunk felt out of place with the rest of it. It's like it was written by 8 different people, and there were 8 different movies going in different ways. The priest, I love the young priest, the one who was challenging or thinking about his faith. I love that storyline.
Father Karras?
Yes, he was brilliant. He was questioning, he was wondering, and they're just sort of halfway through the movie to decide, okay, let's do an offbeat comment that I almost missed, that his mother died. Let's not show it. Let's not show him grieving. Let's not show him actually talking to anyone, and everything's done.
They showed him grieving. He had a small talk while he was smoking in his room with his...
Oh, yes, fall talk.
One important point about this is, before I start bitching about this movie, Eric did raise something very good. They did a fairly decent job of introducing the main characters. The mother, they showed her, as, an actress. They showed her as a parent. They showed her as, a couple times, a fairly highly functioning person. And with a brain person on her. Yeah, definitely. Which was way before its time, because movies of that level tended to be,
horror movies,
really crappy on the female roles. Yeah. And then they did a good job with Father Karras. They built up, they had stuff, and good on you, Exorcist. What happened?
So, all 3 main female characters, the mother, the assistant, and the daughter, were really well fleshed out. They were interesting, and it just felt like once the supernatural stuff started happening, everything sort of fizzled, and they concentrated too much on the action and not enough on the characters. It was genuinely scary in one part. All the tests, the medical tests that she had to do. Oh my god! I would have nightmares about that.
It's scary that is science back then. That's scary.
I'm not even sure if it was. I feel like they might have exaggerated it. The doctors ignoring everything and then just being like, oh, she's got some sort of primitive disease only seen in... Like, really?
Actually, I remember that from textbooks.
Is it?
Because...
It's a psychosomatic illness, right? When you believe that
I understand that part, but the tests they put her through and the way they filmed it, it was a large chunk of the middle movie. Like a good 20-30 minutes that they could have condensed and spent more time dealing with the possession. Like the mother reacting to it, as opposed to basically seeing a nervous mother outside a room where her daughter is being tortured. Because that's what it was.
The crucial part about that, though, was the movie was taking place in an era where psychology and psychiatry was considered, worse than witch doctorage. So the doctors were like, looking very hard and being like, this is a medical brain problem.
Yeah, there has to be an actual physical cause for this.
And they were more willing to be like, hey, go see a priest for an exorcism than go see a psychologist for mental problems.
Well, wasn't it was a psychologist who suggested the exorcism?
Yes,
exactly,
it was. Yeah. Which makes it feel like they tied the two up. But I think they could have done all of that. Just don't show any signs in front of the doctors. And then the doctors will think the mother's insane. And then, boom, you've got the rest of the movie to do something interesting.
Well, I don't know. I liked the medical scenes because it shows how terrifying going in for all these battery of tests are.
Which would be great in a medical horror.
What?
Not a movie called The Exorcist. Again, that's a whole movie of itself. That could have been brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that they established that they're unwilling to perform an exorcism at the drop of a hat. That they're exploring all of the options
I like
before that.
But it wasn't 30-40 minutes worth of a movie.
Well,
it's too much. When you basically get the last scene of the movie for maybe 5-10 minutes, and that's it.
You honestly wanted to see more of a girl being tortured through an exorcism rather than being tortured through medical research? Really?
If it's called The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
If it's called The Exorcist, yes. If it's called Fear the Doctor or Saw, then yeah.
Okay, no, I just think It was a fairly accurate representation, though, honestly, because the Catholic Church doesn't perform exorcisms
Yes.
often, and they won't unless they're absolutely 100% sure that's what's going on.
I completely agree. I just think it was drawn out more.
Well, one
than it
thing,
should've.
the last time I watched this movie, I actually watched it with my mother.
Oh, God!
And so I got her, parents' point of view of this. And she was sitting there being like, okay, so if I brought my child into the hospital and they were showing all kinds of weird signs of, whatever, and the doctor was telling me, oh, it's a brain tumor, and she was like, no, the kid was floating. It's not a brain tumor. Don't let the doctors try to, talk you out of that. You saw what you saw. You heard what your kid said.
That also frustrated me. Yeah. That the mother was like, I've seen something supernatural. And they're like, no, you didn't. And she was like, oh, maybe I didn't.
Especially since we established how capable she is as a person.
And religious. Because she had been...
No, she's agnostic.
Wasn't she speaking to a priest at one point?
That was her last resort.
That was her last resort.
Maybe it was...
She was definitely agnostic. But that said, if I saw someone floating, my first instinct wouldn't be, oh, there's something supernatural. My first instinct will be, what the hell did I eat?
Funny, my first instinct would be, where are the strings?
Yeah, well, that's it exactly.
No, my first instinct would be like, there's something supernatural.
No!
Because I don't do shrooms.
Honestly, I don't do shrooms, neither do I, but that doesn't mean
You don't do any mind-altering substances.
Supernatural would not be my first thing. I would always... No, there has to be a rational explanation for this.
I agree.
And at that time, seizures, shaking the bed, sounds way more rational than, your daughter has been possessed by a Babylonian demon.
So here's the thing, though, about the seizures shaking the bed. I can understand if the kid's having a seizure and the bed is shaking. But before she had that conversation with the doctor, they had the episode where she goes onto the bed and tries to restrain the kid. And I had a friend growing up who had epilepsy, and one of the conditions that was associated with that, either directly or indirectly, was he sees.
Yeah, he had fits.
So I have some experience with, trying to restrain people while they're seizing. Or being around people while they're seizing. And yes, the bed will shake. But when she's got her full weight on the kid and the bed is still bouncing around like an amusement park ride, whoa.
But yes, exactly, whoa. And she says that to the doctor. But again, the rational explanation sounds way better than, by the way, Babylonian demon.
Absolutely. But what I complain about is more the structure of the story. They devoted so much time to showing the horrors of the testing and so little on the doctors telling the mother, well, there has to be a rational explanation. That was maybe a tiny little bit in between all the, let's drill into your head, let's do this, let's do that.
But it was still there.
Yes.
It gave reason for all the, drilling into head.
It could have been done in a character
MRT.
way quicker than in a, let's show the horrors of medicine. In a movie that is, its main conceit is, there are demons that can possess you. Get to the frickin' demons!
I don't know, I liked the build-up.
I found the build-up boring.
Really?
You introduce a whole bunch of characters. You never really show them in a happy place beforehand, before the inciting event. Then anything that happens to them happens off-screen! Except for medical tests. Like the guy's mother dying off-screen. Should have been on-screen and taken out one of the tests. Should have seen him get into the room, seeing his mother die,
I disagree.
And seeing his face as he's questioning his real faith.
I disagree. I don't think that the mother's death was necessary to be shown.
Considering the amount of time they spent showing us the mother.
The main character was the girl, and the main situation was what was happening in this family. That guy's mother... minor character. She doesn't matter.
I gotta go with you on this one. I like the fact that they showed that he was a priest in conflict, and that was cool. but I didn't see that the whole mothers thing necessarily needed to be done on screen.
No, I don't.
If it was going to be done off screen, it should have been done with him. Not at a dinner party with a guest off in the background saying, "Oh yeah, did you hear this and so priest's mother died?" and then carry on. You could have just seen him crying or something to be like, "Oh, his mother died. Okay." Instead of having to rewind 3 times, which I'm sure they couldn't in the 70s.
Yeah.
They had Betamax.
One thing in discussing the doctor's tests issues that I thought was kind of interesting, and this also goes back to the time that this movie was made. They didn't touch on the abuse angle at all.
Yes, that did shock me.
Kid
completely.
comes into a doctor's office and has no other behavioral problems and is using language like, keep your fingers away from my goddamn cunt. And as a medical person, I'd be like, ooh, that abuse thing would start going in my head, and I'd start asking some questions about that. I mean,
I didn't even think about that until now.
No, I remember thinking that, whoa, why is he not freaking out?
It might be the innocence of the age, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and
it didn't cross my mind.
Going on from that point, the way that they filmed the horror aspect of this movie was there was a lot of sexual talk and sexual demonstrations. At one point, she's stabbing herself in the crotch, and
with a crucifix.
The demon, the devil, as the demon called itself, was constantly, using really sexual language. So that was definitely an undertone in the movie that they used to make it more scarier and
shocking.
Shock
value.
I think it was shock value. Yeah.
But no, you're right. I would have loved them to explore more the child, the character of the girl, because about halfway through the movie, when she's possessed, she disappears completely, except for a few scenes where you see her a little scared. But it would have been nice to see her, because she was a good actress, to see her acting out, being like, what am I doing? What's going on? Being afraid.
Or just a scene between possessions where she was just like sobbing, like, get it out, like whatever, something.
Help me, or something.
Other than the help me scrolled across her belly?
Yes.
Oh, that was a bit cheesy. Okay. Whatever. It's fine. It's okay. Yeah.
I really did like this film, though. I don't have...
I'm not judging you for not liking it. I just
No,
find
you can judge me all the time.
pacing... I just find the pacing and the structure to be weak.
Oh, okay.
Pacing and structure of the movie are... The pacing is 1970s. It is 60s, 70s horror where they're going to drag out every little unimportant detail and then skip every important one. It's something
I agree that the pacing is not what modern audiences are used to, but honestly, I found it refreshing.
I didn't. I found if this was a book, I would have quit.
Oh, really?
I
would have been fascinated. It is a book, by the way.
Oh. If I had been reading it as a book, I would have quit.
It's the Exorcist, the film, is based on The Exorcist, the novel.
Well.
And apparently was extremely faithful to the source material I read. So.
Except that I'm sure the book goes into more detail and all the things that I wanted to know.
I'm sure it does.
Hopefully.
But yeah, I don't know, I found the subject matter fascinating. Not because I'm a believer in any way, but because I just find the whole psychology of possession really interesting.
And I found it really fascinating too, but I feel like it was such a surface skim of everything. Surface skim of archaeology, surface skim of medical, surface skim of single motherhood, surface skim of possession, surface skim of death.
Yeah.
Another thing that I noted, like moving us into the actual possession part, was
the last 10 minutes?
Yeah, which we should focus on really, because it's The Exorcist. When the priest was talking to the demon, it said,
Zuzu.
Yeah, it said, I am the devil. And then he asked, is Regan in there with you? And its response is, yes, she's in there with us. And at that point I was like, oh, really? And then I thought they said that on purpose. And then they never went back to defining what the us was. And
I assumed it was sort of the king of darkness, the devil, like
Yeah.
the royal us.
No, because I think it was for myself, I assumed it was a psychological game played by Pazuzu on the priest, because he's talking about the priest's mother. She's in here as well. That was the
yeah, because she kept mimicking.
Okay.
I liked the interplay between the priests and the demon. I liked the psychological war games that he was playing with them, and just general being a dick.
Well,
That was really okay, maybe I'm twisted and totally weird, but that was really entertaining, and I could have used more of that. Maybe interspersed with the other stories. So instead of the priest's whole thing beforehand, intersperse it with the flashbacks during the Exorcist. So you would get sort of, why is this demon talking about his mother? Oh, look, he was taking care of his mother. Boom. You know?
yeah, no, I get that, but extensive use of flashbacks tends to annoy me. So
Well, it wouldn't necessarily
may
have to be
worked.
flashbacks. It could have been,
What if
like they said, it took weeks.
strategic instead of intensive use of flashbacks? Strategic use of flashbacks.
It doesn't even need to be. I mean, Exorcist at night, he walks home during the day, and then it'd go back to the exorcism that night.
That's
'Cause
not
there
how
was
exorcism works.
Whole weeks of work. Well, they could switch out.
They could switch
He
out.
could get a call.
Tag team!
The demon could be like,
The
your
Rock
mother's
jumps
in
into the
here.
ring.
The mother could be like, the demon could be, your mother's in here. And then he's like, yeah, well, my mother's alive. And then he gets a call.
Or the other priest is like, wait, don't talk about mom. You're out, you're too close. I'll deal with the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Take a breather, have a cigarette, call your mother. Oh my god, she's dead. Oh god. Yeah.
But
Devout Catholics everywhere want to kill you both.
So nothing has changed then. Okay, that's fine.
Devout Catholics hate this movie, so it really doesn't matter if we're
But
making
you know what?
fun of it.
I guess it's true.
The priests did do a good job. I mean,
They were very realistic for people who had no idea what's going on.
I don't see... Okay, coming from a non-devout Catholic, or a non-Catholic period, I don't see why Catholics would have a problem with this movie. Because the priests were portrayed very well.
Yes.
It's obviously a last resort. The priests handled the whole situation extremely well. If I was somebody who was, very religious, I'd be like, haha, score 1 for the religion, doctors suck. But
it was more that possession doesn't exist as an official dictate of the church.
oh, say that now.
Oh, I don't know what the official dictates of the church are.
Possession doesn't exist.
I don't pay that much
And
attention.
also there's a lot of blasphemy in it. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh, yeah, yes. Oh, the scene... okay, this movie was not terrifying to me. It was intensely fascinating. It wasn't scary, but there was one jump scare. And that's when the mother returns home and the lights in the kitchen are flickering. And then they flick on very briefly and then flick off. And when they flick on, you see a face beside... what's her name? Chris, the character Chris, the mum. You see a face just very, very briefly in the light. And that made me go, wah! And this is my third viewing of this movie, actually. I watched it a few years ago because I was determined to face my fears, and I would watch a scary movie, and I picked The Exorcist because it was iconic. And I wasn't scared at all. I was more fascinated. Didn't see it then. I didn't see it in my second viewing months ago when the movie was pulled from the bowl. I saw it last night when I was watching this. I saw it and I went, holy... Wow! Why did I not see that before? That was good.
Special effects and detail-wise, the movie was great. I just really wish there was more
Acting
in
too.
depth.
Acting too. I mean,
Acting was brilliant.
When the mother
Yes.
first mentioned the exorcism to the priest, the look on his face was brilliant. She's like, "And how would one go about getting an exorcism?"
And
He
he's
was
just
like, "Whoa, that doesn't happen."
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We're running very, very short on time, so I'm going to go with final thoughts and star rating, Eric.
It was a nice attempt at a psychological horror, and I would have liked parts of it to be expanded. I'll give it a 3 out of 5.
Oh, that's
because
way more generous than I thought you were going to give it.
it has some serious issues, but it is iconic. It was... People watched it and said, "Oh, we can do something better with this part," and then made all kinds of awesome movies and books.
Rob.
Oh boy, I don't give it any value in my star rating for whether it was not iconic.
That's okay.
So I would give it somewhere between a 1 and a 2 stars. I probably have to give it closer to the 2 star. We'll say 2 star, and that's because it did have some very good acting. There were parts of the story which were written very well, but I mean, like we were discussing, I would have liked to have seen a lot more Exorcist and a lot less medical drama.
For myself, I gave it 4 stars. I really like this movie a lot. I thought the acting was brilliant. I thought the way that they handled the skepticism around exorcism was brilliant. And I was so fascinated all the way through the movie. Like when I'm reading about Iron Age Britain, kind of fascinated. Like, it kept me. So, yeah, 4 stars. I really enjoyed this film.
The anthropology of the 70s.
A little bit, I guess. Yeah, a bit. Yeah. So, yeah, there we go. What did you guys think? You can leave a comment down below if you like. If you liked this episode, hit the like button. If you want to hear more from us, hit the subscribe button. Now it's time to pick the next movie. Who wants to go?
Go ahead, Rob.
It's going to be a disaster and they're going to blame me. It's fine.
Please.
K-Pax.
It is all your
2001.
fault.
It was.
Alright, so the next movie we're going to be reviewing is K-Pax 2001. I've never even heard of it, so this should be interesting. Yay! Alright, thanks guys. See you next time. Bye! Oh wait,